So these unsent draft emails in this particular situation have caught a lot of attention. What do you know about them?
That's right. Well, Aaron, these two drafted emails are both dated July 18th, 2013, and they were saved in Jeffrey Epstein's email accounts. They appear to be draft emails from Epstein to itself. It's not actually clear who authored them, and there's no indication the messages were ever sent, no evidence they were shared with Bill Gates or anyone else. Now, in those draft emails, Epstein or whoever authored them makes graphic and explicit and unverified allegations about Gates. Within one email, Epstein claimed he helped, quote, get drugs in order to deal with the consequences of sex with Russian girls and set up illicit trysts with married women. The email also references Gates asking Epstein to provide Adderall for bridge tournaments. One draft email alleges that Gates tearfully asked Epstein to delete messages referencing an STD, writing, "Your request that I provide you antibiotics that you surreptitiously give to Melinda." It also says Gates asked him to delete explicit personal details about his penis. Now, a representative for Gates strongly denied those claims, telling CNN they were, quote, absolutely absurd and absolutely false. And Gates himself was asked about this by a CNN affiliate in Australia. Take a listen to what he said here.
Apparently, Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that. It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
And that's his response, it seems like, within the past day or so. Mm-hmm. Andrew, you dug into both the emails sent between the two, Epstein and Gates, and the meetings listed in the Justice Department files. Can you tell us what that showed?
Well, what also stands out, Aaron, is how much Epstein was advising Gates on his philanthropic strategy more than previously known. And it appears in at least one of those emails that Gates took Epstein's advice seriously. For instance, an email exchange from August 2014 shows Gates and Epstein discussing Gates' approach to philanthropy. Epstein wrote to Gates, "I am confident that with the right approach, you'll be able to raise at least $100 billion. Everyone of hyper wealth is dealing with the same issues. How to give some away? I can see that selling yourself is not your strong point." To which Gates replied, "I agree. I should not use slides or even do a presentation. I do think a bit about how surprised I am at how tough doing good philanthropy is, and what really has worked might be interesting to them. I will find a time for us to talk this week." Those were not the only meetings. According to Epstein's calendars and emails, which we went through. Epstein's email listed a dinner with Gates in December 2010, a possible lunch in February 2011, followed by a dinner in April and October 2011. The records also show a planned meeting in Norway in August 2012, another a week later, two meetings in February 2013, a possible dinner in September 2013 in which Epstein extended an invite to a Norwegian diplomat. We also saw a Google Calendar reminder for a Skype meeting with Gates in January 2014, a meeting and a phone call in September 2014. And there's also this February 2011 message where Epstein emailed an individual whose name is redacted saying, quote, "You and I are invited to Seattle to spend serious time with Bill Gates." And again, Aaron, all of this occurring years after his 2008 conviction.
Yeah, years after that, of course, as he was registered sex offender. Okay. Now, Melinda French Gates and Bill Gates' ex-wife, they're divorced now. She broke her silence this week, and she was candid about Epstein in the sense of what that did, that entire thing did to their marriage. And she talked about how she felt seeing her ex-husband as the subject of those draft emails, and in all these other mentions of how, so those draft emails that you went through that are too disgusting to recount. Here she is.
Whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me. And I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for... I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. For me, I've been able to move on in life, and I hope there's some justice for those now women.
I mean, that was incredibly powerful. Your reporting suggests that Epstein appeared to be aware of the fact that Melinda Gates was uncomfortable with his relationship with Bill Gates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Aaron. Remember, too, the Wall Street Journal previously reported Bill Gates' association with Epstein was a factor in their divorce, and we found a February 2017 text exchange between Epstein and a redacted intermediary who wrote about Gates. He wants to talk to you, but his wife won't let him. That same intermediary wrote to Gates then, wrote to Epstein that Gates, quote, loves you and says hi, but made clear that Melinda objected to continued contact. Epstein then suggested Melinda connect with Kathy Rumler, that's a former Obama White House counsel and a friend of Epstein's, to reassure Melinda. He said, Bill met my friend Kathy Rumler, Obama counsel for 5 years. She would love to sit with Melinda and give her the other side of Jeffrey, Epstein wrote, adding, she is, quote, an arch feminist who is my great defender. Now, Rumler previously told CNN that she never met with Melinda Gates. The redacted individual then replied about this exchange, not sure individuals can influence once impressions are made, but I will try. I do not know for sure, but I do not think he would be unwilling to bring it up with her.
New details from the released Epstein files revealing the deceased pedophile's wide-reaching global network of the rich and powerful. Remember, it was August 2006 when Palm Beach police went public with their investigation. August 2006 when police said Epstein had committed unlawful sex acts with and lewd and lascivious molestation of 5 underage girls. 2006. Epstein would, a couple years later, be convicted on 2 counts of solicitation of prostitution, one of those counts involving a minor. So that's 2008. Yet, these individuals associated with Epstein years after those facts were well known. So today, let's start with a prominent name with which you might not be familiar, Brad Karp, the now former chairman of Paul Weiss, one of the nation's top corporate law firms, representing some of the biggest companies in the world. Karp abruptly resigned yesterday following the release of his email exchanges with Jeffrey Epstein, such as this 2015 email in which Karp profusely thanked Epstein for hosting him, writing, quote, I can't thank you enough for including me in an email I'll never forget. It was truly once in a lifetime in every way, though I hope to be invited again, unquote. Epstein responded, writing, quote, you are always welcome. There are many, many nights of unique talents. You will be invited often, unquote. Unique talents. These sort of cringy, chummy emails between Epstein and Karp continued as recently as February 2019. That's the year that Epstein showed up dead in his cell, later ruled a suicide. And only months before he would face a second set of criminal charges for sex trafficking minors. In a previous statement to the Wall Street Journal, the Paul Weiss firm said, quote, Mr. Karp never witnessed or participated in any misconduct. Mr. Karp had 2 group dinners in New York City and had a small number of social interactions by email, all of which he regrets. I bet he does. Karp's own statement says, quote, recent reporting has created a distraction and has placed a focus on me that is not in the best interests of the firm. Despite stepping down as chairman, the law firm says Karp, quote, will continue to focus his full-time attention to client service at the firm. We're also getting our first look at the hundreds of friendly text messages between Epstein and former Trump advisor, MAGA Svengali Steve Bannon. They include crude sexual jokes about women and Trump and discussions on countless other topics. Put together, the communications suggest a much closer relationship between the two that was widely understood. There's also a nearly 2-hour-long, largely sympathetic interview filmed around 2019 that Bannon conducted with Epstein, which was reportedly originally intended to be part of a documentary intended to, we believe, rehabilitate Epstein's image as something other than a pedophile and predator and trafficker in child rape. Several exchanges from the interview stand out, such as this one where Epstein is asked about being a sex offender.
What are you, class 3 sexual predator?
Tier 1.
Was tier 1's the highest and worst?
No, I'm the
lowest?
I'm the lowest.
You're the lowest. Okay, tier 1, you're the lowest. But a criminal.
Yes.
Bannon has not responded to CNN's request for comment. We should note that Bannon has not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein.
What you just heard is disturbing. But it's also important to separate what is proven from what is merely alleged. The emails at the center of this story were never sent. They were unsent drafts, saved inside Jeffrey Epstein's email account. Written to himself, there is no confirmation of who actually authored them. No evidence they were shared, and no proof that the claims inside them are true. On their own, those drafts do not establish wrongdoing by anyone named in them. But here's where this story does become serious. What is documented and cannot be dismissed are the years of meetings, dinners, and phone calls between Epstein and some of the most powerful people in the world, long after Epstein was a convicted sex offender. That includes Bill Gates. Gates has strongly denied the claims described in the draft emails and has acknowledged that associating with Epstein at all was a mistake. He maintains that his interactions were limited to dinners and conversations about philanthropy, and that he had no involvement in Epstein's crimes. However, records show that Epstein wasn't just a casual acquaintance. He was repeatedly meeting with Gates, advising him on philanthropic strategy, and positioning himself as a connector to other ultra-wealthy donors. Years after Epstein's criminal history was public knowledge, that raises a far more uncomfortable question. Why was a convicted sex offender still being treated as a trusted advisor, an insider within elite circles? Melinda French Gates' response brings the human reality back into focus. Her words don't center on gossip or drafts or reputations. They center on grief, on moral reckoning, and on the victims. She makes it clear that whatever personal pain existed in her marriage, it pales in comparison to what Epstein's victims endured.
And this story does not stop with Bill Gates. The newly released files show Epstein maintaining warm, even enthusiastic relationships with top lawyers, political operatives, and media figures. Some praised him, some thanked him, some socialized with him up until the final years of his life, despite knowing exactly who he was. No crimes are being alleged here against those individuals. But the pattern is unmistakable. Jeffrey Epstein did not operate in isolation. He moved comfortably among powerful people who either ignored, minimized, or compartmentalized his crimes. That collective tolerance is the real revelation of these files. So while unsent drafts may fade into ambiguity, the documented relationships do not. And the question that remains is not just what did Epstein do? It's this: how did so many people with so much influence continue to look the other way?